Hello, and welcome to my channel. Today I will be sharing with you how I've created the new moon page of my grimoire. To start, I will be taking a single sheet of black drawing paper. This paper is slightly larger than the book itself, bending the page at the seam. I will crease along the tear seam to ensure seamlessness. Carefully tearing the page from the booklet, making sure not to create any jagged edges. With the page removed from the booklet, I place it inside of the book. Smooth the page out and size it to see exactly where I need to cut to ensure that it fits within the book page. Using my ruler, I will measure the size of the page in the book. Using a black pen, I will mark the spot on the ruler to ensure the highest degree of accuracy. Now I will measure the height of the page. Using a mechanical pencil, I mark the page and then move the ruler down to measure more accurately. Once again, taking my black marker, I mark the line on the ruler. I repeat these steps on the black page. Here, I will create a second mark to ensure that the bottom portion of the page, when cut, is even. Having two marks on the page allows me to place the ruler more accurately when drawing my guideline for cutting. Now, I will move the book out of the way as it is no longer needed for any future steps. Placing my cutting mat down, I will rotate the cutting mat in order to gain access to the longer portion. Placing my paper down, and then placing a ruler on top of the guideline I created earlier. With the ruler firmly in place, I will take my rotary cutter and slice the page at the bottom, removing the excess paper. Removing any extraneous guideline marks I have created earlier, the page is now ready. Placing the book on the table again, I will find exactly what page I intend to place this piece of paper on. Here, I will measure to make sure that the page sits comfortably against the edge and is flush with both top and right portions of the book. Smoothing the paper with my hands allows me to determine if any more cuts need to be made. This appears to be in good shape, so I will remove the page from the book, placing the paper on the table and smoothing it out with my hands. Now I will begin to draw the design that I want on the page, starting out with a very rough sketch. It is not important at this stage to have a final design. In this portion, I will only try to sketch out where I would like to see the items on the page. Placing my ruler down, I will draw a line right in the middle to denote the absolute center of the page. These dots will indicate each moon phase, of which I will need a circle. These dots will be the absolute center of those circles. I am carefully adding midpoints to the circle along the line drawn earlier. From this point, I will take my pencil compass and draw circles down the line using the midpoints I just drew as centers of reference. I find it easier to rotate the entire page instead of trying to rotate just the compass. Sometimes rotating just the compass for me can cause the compass to skip or to jump from the middle point of which I have it resting. Erasing the circle I've already completed because the diameter was too big, I begin to draw a new circle Moving down to the next point, I begin to draw the next circle. And then the next. Moving on from here, progress will go a lot smoother and quicker as the correct diameter for the circles have been established, and the midpoints are now my absolute guide. Now the base moon shapes are complete. From this point, I will move forward, and on each moon shape, I'll create a different moon phase. Looking back, I could have been very specific and deliberate with the way that I've drawn these. I could have used the compass, but instead I decided to freehand them. It's at this point I've realized that I've forgotten to include the full moon in my array of moon phases. Here, I will correct my mistake. You will also note that I have not included the new moon phase. This was intentional, as the way that I have set up the finished drawing, there would be no way to determine between the new moon and the full moon. Now I am erasing the extra portions of the circle from the moon phases so as to more accurately represent the shape. Now I will go in with my ruler and add a single line connecting each individual moon shape to one another. Here I am being careful not to draw over the moon shapes, but merely have the line as a connector between each one. Here, I will add 3 small decorative dots to resemble beads at the end of the string connecting the moon phases. Now, I will begin the arduous task of creating the hand. Anyone who has done art at all in their lives know how difficult it is to draw the human hand. I will start drawing the finger of which is holding the string and then become very displeased with it and erase it. Prior to recording this video, I took several reference photos of my hand in the exact position that I wanted the drawing to be. Here, I have taken a piece of tracing paper, placed it over my iPad, and traced the outline of the hand that I took reference photos of. I will place the tracing paper over the spot that I want it to be on the piece of paper and then trace over the outline to create an indent in the paper underneath to where the hand will be. This will give me a very accurate guideline for the placement of my hand. One never realizes how chubby their hand looks until they're drawing an outline of it onto a piece of paper. Now that I have the guideline where I want my hand to be, I will begin preparing the area for the gold foil that I will place over top of the drawing that I have just done. Drawing all of the elements beforehand onto the page allows me to be able to accurately size the piece of gold foil that will cover the entire piece. Here, I'm using my ruler to gently hold down the gold foil paper as it has a tendency to curl. Using a piece of tape I've previously removed most of the stickiness from, I hold down the gold foil at the top. Here, I smooth down the gold foil as much as possible and then take my rotary cutter and cut along the edge of the paper. Using my ruler once again, I will hold the paper down while I get a piece of tape and prepare it for sticking on the page. It is absolutely crucial that you remove the majority of the stickiness from the tape before taking this step. Otherwise, when removing the tape from the paper, it will pull a lot of your black paper off. On this particular piece, you'll see that it was very sticky, and later, when removing it, you will notice that it rips some of the paper off. I realized at this exact moment while watching this, my face at the bottom of the gold foil seemed a little disturbing. I apologize for any disturbing images of facial features you might see in the gold foil. Now, I will be taking my Cricut Heat Pen and plugging it into my chargeable battery pack. This gives me a convenient source of power when I'm not near an outlet. This heat pen will allow me to apply heat to the gold foil, which will then transfer it on to the black paper. Here I am taking the tracing paper drawing of the hand that I have created, and I'm placing it roughly where I believe it should appear. Taking a small piece of tape and removing more of the sticky, I'm applying it to the bottom of the gold foil where there appears to be a little bit more of the rising up and crinkling. Using a ruler, I will draw the string that will be connecting all of the moon phases. Drawing with the marker will not cause the gold foil to transfer to the black paper. At this point, I tried to remove the pencil from the compass and insert the marker, but the marker was too wide to fit within the narrow confines of the compass pencil holder. So I returned the pencil to its casing, and now I will take the pencil and the compass and draw the circle outlines of my moon shapes. Here you can see the trouble of moving just the compass, as it tends to skip and jump. I've been working with one of these for quite some time and have yet to find a solution to this problem. Perhaps it is the method in which I hold the compass. User error is common. I continue to work my way down, drawing each circle. Here, I appear to be a little less precise with the way that I am laying these out. That is simply because I have previously done it and have an idea of exactly where they should be. As with all art, precision is not the key. Sometimes I get too caught up in trying to be perfect, and sometimes that can cause you to either not do the art or not finish the art. And here I was trying to avoid that. So instead of focusing on perfection, I simply focused on what felt right to me. Having completed the moon shapes, I now move on to outline the hand that is holding the string of moons. This outlining of this hand will place indents into the gold foil, of which I can use as an outline when I go over it with my heat pen. It is important before you start any kind of work on the gold foil that your heat pen is very hot. This is why I have plugged it in and set it aside for it to heat up to its optimal temperature before beginning any work on the gold foil. Here I am simply drawing in the shapes of the moon phases. And now, one last time, I'm going over the hand outline to ensure that once I start work with the heat pen, I will be able to clearly see lines for this shape. It is very important that before you begin work on your gold foil transfer paper, that any seams, creases, or bulges underneath the paper are removed and the paper lies as flat as possible against the piece of paper you intend to transfer the gold foil to. Failure to do so could result in gaps or missing spaces from your work. As this is not a desirable outcome, I have attempted to remove as much of the lack as I can. Now I begin with the heat transfer pen. As this is my first time using the heat transfer pen, I am very cautious about the way that I press against the gold foil. I begin with a simple shape, a moon at the very top of the string. It is very important that while you're doing this, you do not apply too much pressure as to cause a rip in the gold foil or to distort the paper around it too much. I found as I went through that it took very little pressure in order to transfer the gold foil onto the page. Make sure that you allow the heat to penetrate the gold foil for the optimal amount of time to ensure that the transfer completes successfully. Now I will do the line all the way down, being careful not to go over any of the moon shapes that I've created just now, but also making sure that the gold foil transfers and connects the moon pieces to the string. This can be quite difficult when you cannot see under your work and cannot have a vision of what it looks like and where you're missing things. So it's important to take your time, go slowly. Here was the most nerve-wracking part for me, the hand. If this piece did not turn out well, it could throw the entire design off. So I was very careful and very deliberate about how I laid my lines down. It is worth noting that if you are doing a straight line, or any kind of line that requires any smoothness, that you try to complete it in as few strokes as possible, lifting the pen and then resuming tracing along a straight line, even if you believe you've done it accurately, can lead to uneven lines, gaps, or imperfections in your line. With the drawing of the hand complete, here I am tapping the heat pen in various portions of the gold foil to create stars. I am doing this with no logic, no pre-planning, just wherever I feel comfortable placing a star. It's important to note that I try to avoid the area down below, at least leave a big gap, because I intend to put text here at the bottom. With that being complete, I slowly and carefully start to remove the tape. At any point of resistance or at any part of the tape removal where I feel that anything is ripping or tearing, I immediately stop and I move to another section. You can see the pencil outline and how I am slightly off from it, but it does not detract from the final design. The gold foil looks beautiful. I move it over slightly to the left and begin adding in more stars, picking up the foil and checking each star placement. These are a little bit more deliberate, as there are already stars on the page and I do not want to collide or overlap any of the stars currently existing. This portion is entirely up to you how much you want to put on the page. If you would like a lot of stars, feel free to add as many stars as you like. Here, I am realigning the design as much as possible, just to check accuracy. It is very important when you lay down your heat transfer pen that you are very careful in its placement, as this is a very hot tip. Line it on any kind of flammable surface could result in a fire, so please be mindful and keep yourself safe while you're being creative. Here, I am removing all pencil marks previously made on the page. I'm being careful to avoid erasing over the gold foil, but I did accidentally go over it a few times and noticed that it had no effect on the gold foil. But just to be safe, please be careful when erasing. I am continuing to erase any extra pencil lines that remain on my page. In this case, it might be beneficial to use a black eraser, but seeing as I did not have one on hand, I went ahead and used the eraser from my mechanical pencil, and it appeared to work just fine. It left no residue, or did it discolor the page whatsoever while I was erasing. So in this case it was fine, but for future projects I will get a black eraser to use. Now I will begin work on the text that I planned for the bottom of the page. Here I will unroll a fresh piece of gold foil. Using my rotary cutter and my ruler to hold the gold foil down, I will slice a piece of it to cover the bottom of the page. The weight of the ruler provides just enough tension in order to keep it flat enough for me to hold the paper down and tape it. I decided that instead of using more tape, I would try to reuse the tape I was already utilizing on the page. Once again, smoothing the gold foil as much as possible. Here, I am adding small pieces of tape to the bottom right and left corners to keep it nice and taut while I work. Now, taking my brown marker with a very, very fine point, I will begin to draw guidelines to ensure that as I write the text, none of it overlaps the design. I will create a second guideline, ensuring the design is encapsulated between the lines. Here, I will draw a bottom line to note the bottom of the design. Now, I will add a guideline to make sure that when I'm writing the text, it stays in a straight line. This text will rest flush against this line. And I begin writing my text. The great thing about using markers on this gold foil is that they're very easy to erase. Just simply smudge out any errors and start over. I was not satisfied with the way the word moon was spaced, so I simply moistened my finger and then removed the marker lines. Here I try for a broader line spacing between the texts. Satisfied with that, I move on to the next word. Now I will test my heat pen. Please do not do like I did and stick it really close to your hand. You could have a burn if you do that. So always make sure to give ample enough time for your heat pen to warm up to be at optimal temperature for this. I tend to be a little bit careless and impatient when I'm doing my work, and I tend to do things sometimes that aren't exactly to the greatest benefit of me. I'm sure we've all done things like that before. But it pays to be mindful and then correct our behaviors. Now I begin by taking the heat pen, and instead of going from the first letter to the last, I will go from the last letter to the first. Now, this seems a little counterintuitive, as our hands are used to writing in one direction, and this seems like it would introduce error. But because of the way that we write, if I would have started from left to right, I would have been covering most of the text with my hand and would have been guessing as to where I was going for the next line. Doing it this way allows me to see a clear path as to where my line should go. You will notice that I am being as gentle as possible with the paper, while also holding down the edge to make sure that I give a little extra tightness to the paper as I'm drawing across it. Now that that is complete, I lay my pen down, making sure to keep it off of its cord, and then I check to see if I'm satisfied with the placement of the words and make sure there's no missing spaces or skips in the lines. Here you'll notice that I pulled off a little bit of my paper on the left there. The tape was still quite a bit sticky, but that's okay. Later on, I will take a black marker and cover that up, and it'll be like it never happened. I attempt to use a micron pen in order to cover up the black there that got ripped off, but those pens are not pigmented enough and therefore did not fix the problem. Here, I will take a brush marker and go over the area that was damaged during the tape removal. And you can see, as the marker ink dries, the blemish appears to disappear right before our eyes. The design is done. With the design being done, it is now time to try and place it inside of the book. I will unplug my heat pen and move that to the side, making sure to keep it safe while it cools down. Then I will position my book and open it to the page that I wish to apply this design to. Here, I'm just trying to find the correct page that I want the design to go on. I have my grimoire set up to where very specific sections already have pages allotted to them. And in the hustle and bustle of creating this page, I forgot to place my blue ribbon back into the space where I wanted the design to go, or where this section would start. So this created a little bit of confusion, of which I'm trying to clear up now. Here, I will place the page and smooth it out. Make sure that it is straight and even. I will take my gold marker and write a couple practice numbers at the bottom, as I intend to put the page number in the bottom right-hand corner of this design, and I want to make sure that the marker does not act unpredictably. I will also check the colors of the gold to make sure that they're close in comparison. I don't expect them to match exactly, as they're two very different products, but as long as they are close, that is fine by me. Now here, I will take some stick glue and line the edges of the paper with it. Now, as I'm doing this voiceover from the future, I know that this does not work. This will not hold the paper securely. So, if you are following along with me and doing this design yourself, avoid this step. Do not follow this step. Instead, get a spray glue meant specifically for adhering paper together. And then take your design outside. Make sure that you place it down on a clean, dry surface, and then spray the spray glue on the back of the design page. Then bring the page back into your workspace and then apply it to the book. Having done this, my book now has the page in there very securely. Here, I'm just simply pressing and applying pressure for that page to stick. Little did I know at the time of doing this that the page would not stick regardless. It appears to have a good, firm connection, and so, for the moment, I am satisfied. Now, I will write the page number in the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you for watching my walkthrough on how I created the moon phases portion of my grimoire. If you found this video to be helpful, pleasing, or beneficial in any way, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.